Going Home, written by Val Wood, read by Anne Dover. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Chapter 1.
My father says your mother was a whore.
Ralph Hawkins hesitated for only a second, then crunched up his fist and directed it towards the conveyor of the insulting remark. It found its mark on Edwin Boyle's chubby chin and knocked him to the ground.
Don't ever say that again, or it'll be the worse for you.
Ralph rubbed his knuckles with his other hand. The blow had hurt him too, but he didn't mind that. He'd been wanting to hit the little toad for some time, and even though he wasn't completely sure what his adversary had meant by his statement, it had been made with such gleeful venom that it was obviously not complimentary. Edwin started to blubber, and their teacher, Miss Henderson, came hurrying towards them, her movements restricted by her old-fashioned overlong black gown. The ribbons on her bonnet swung around her neck, and her slippered feet pitter-pattered on the schoolyard. She was followed in less haste by Edwin's sister, Phoebe.
"No fighting, boys," the teacher twittered. "It is not gentlemanly. Now get up, Edwin. And Ralph, say you're sorry to Edwin for hitting him."
"But I'm not sorry." Ralph glared down at Edwin and was gratified to see that a hole had been torn in Edwin's striped stockings, just below the knee of his knickerbockers.
"He insulted my mother."
Miss Henderson's face turned pink, but she stammered.
"I'm sure he didn't mean to. Now come along and make up. There's good fellows."
"They're not good fellows," Phoebe interrupted.
"Not either of them. They're both horrible, and Edwin's just a crybaby."
"And you're horrible too, Phoebe Boyle.
You'll never be a lady,"
her brother retaliated as he scrambled to his feet.
"Father says you won't."
Ralph turned his back on them and walked towards the gate where he knew his mother would be waiting in the trap, if she hadn't sent one of the Aboriginal boys to meet him, as sometimes she did if she was busy. But today she was there already with his young sister Peggy. Next to their trap was another, with Mrs. Boyle sitting in it, waiting for Edwin and Phoebe. Both women had their backs to him, and appeared to be talking together, though they were not close friends. His mother and father didn't have many friends. Only people like Ralph's godfather, Ralph Clavell, and Benny and Daisy Mungo, the parents of Jack, his best friend. Few people from Sydney visited their farm socially. It was set high up in the hills overlooking Sydney Cove. The best view in all the area, his father boasted. He could sell it for a fortune if he wanted to, but he wouldn't. His mother, Meg, turned to greet him, but her smile faded and she raised her dark eyebrows as she saw the sullen expression on his face.
"In trouble again, Ralph? What have you been up to this time?"
"Ralph and Edwin have been fighting, Mrs. Hawkins," Phoebe broke in from behind him, before Ralph could offer an explanation, and he gave her a withering look. "Edwin was rude."
"Edwin?"
Lucinda Boyle turned to her son. The difference between her and Meg Hawkins was immediately apparent. Her demeanour was ladylike, her manner gentle and cultivated. She had the fair, translucent skin and soft blonde hair of an Englishwoman, and was dressed too in the manner of the ladies of the mother country, in her sprigged sheath dress, with its ruched bodice and draped skirt, though today, because she was driving her trap, she wore no bustle. Meg was weather-browned, her hair dark and unruly beneath her wide hat, and she wore a plain, though good-quality, bleached cotton gown. Nevertheless, she was a handsome woman, with a proud, strong and defiant look about her. Ralph caught his mother's glance, and intuitively she didn't question further, but told him to get into the trap. "Boys will fight, Mrs. Boyle," she said, and shook the reins. "Don't worry about it. They'll be friends again by morning." Mrs. Boyle smiled in agreement, and wishing each other goodbye, they moved off in different directions, with the two boys glaring at each other, and Phoebe looking smug and twirling a blonde ringlet around her finger. "Want to tell me about it?" Ralph's mother asked as they pulled up the steep, dusty road towards home. He glanced at his sister sitting next to him and shook his head.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?